Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for having me here. Indeed, I will talk to you about my experience with getting a disruptive innovation to the market. And, well, based on the model that Gregory just showed, I think we're just getting out of the valley of death right now. I'm just hoping that we just got out of the valley and that we're going up now. We'll have to see whether we're going to have a fallback before we do. So let me tell you shortly about my experience in getting this technology, this innovation to the market. So how do you get from science to the invention and to the innovation and eventually get the innovation to the market? I started as a PhD at Wageningen University in the Netherlands to do research on a technology to produce electricity from living plants. Now, the first question you ask yourself, so why would we do that? Well, as you probably know, still the larger part of our electricity production comes from fossil fuels, coal-fired power plants in most cases. We do have some alternatives, and we're increasingly using these alternative energy sources. So we only know solar power and wind power and hydropower. The problem is that we do use biomass for energy production and for electricity production as well, but it's not very efficient. Because what we do when we use biomass as an energy source, we grow a crop, we harvest it, we transport it, we probably make biogas out of it and then make electricity out of the biogas. So we got a lot of conversion steps in between that actually limits the efficiency of the energy production from the biomass. And the second challenge with using biomass is that we all know these discussions about land use and competing claims on the same land. So we at Wageningen University, we had the idea that we needed to do something about it because still we think that there's a lot of energy stored, so biochemical energy stored in biomass, and we should be able to use that efficiently. And then we came up with this process. And I'll shortly run you through it to give you a bit of understanding. So basically, a plant produces organic matter via photosynthesis. So it uses solar power and converts the solar power into chemical energy, basically, glucose. So the plant uses part of the organic matter for its own growth, and what's left over is excreted into the soil. In the soil, bacteria break down the organic matter, and in that process, electrons are released. So we found a way to actually capture the electrons that were excreted by the bacteria, capture them in a carbon electrode, and then if you couple that electrode to a second electrode, basically you've got a battery. And the nice thing here is that it's completely running on biological processes. So our electrodes are both carbon electrodes, so they're not included in the process. They won't degrade, they won't dissolve. This is inert material. So basically we're purely running on this biological process, on the bacteria releasing the electrons. Well, this was a nice idea when we started. And actually by now we've been able to get this on the market, put our first products on the market, and scale up to our biggest system is now 100 square meters. And we can use it to power lights along the roadside, for example. So we're starting to put this technology into practice. But while we were doing that, we obviously ran into some problems and we had quite a few challenges to overcome. And what probably holds for most startup companies coming out of university or just starting up with a great idea wherever they come from, you always have the challenge to get stuff financed. At least in the beginning, you don't have any credit, any profit, so you have to find your finances somewhere else. There's this big challenge of credibility, and Gregory shortly discussed that as well. We've got this new technology, and someone has to adopt it, has to believe that it's actually going to work. Probably the first thing you thought when I said we can make electricity with living plants. You were thinking, yeah, right. Show me before I believe that. Oh, and by the way, when you've seen it, you still don't believe it. what happens a lot is when I do bring a demo, that people look at it and say, okay, where's the battery? I say, there's no battery. This is the battery. Yeah, right. So credibility is a big thing here. It is difficult to gain that credibility. And then there's this challenge of managing expectations. So when someone starts to believe that it could actually work, then people start thinking, and they have these ideas. Oh, and I could charge my cell phone on a plant. Can you give me a plant? Can I charge my cell phone? And I say, well, maybe in a few years' time, 5 to 10 years. And then the next day there's in the newspaper that it's actually possible to charge your cell phone with a plant. Well, there you go. And the final one, and I'm really happy that Gregory already discussed this as well, is knowledge dissemination. So when you start with a very innovative, disruptive technology, there are only a few people actually working on the technology. And at least in our case, our biggest challenge is to get this knowledge dispersed over so many people that we can actually scale up. Now, when you look at the timeline, more or less, so how does this develop? Everyone thinks, okay, so we've got this great idea, and then science comes in, and we do the experiments, and then we write a business plan, and we've got all these coaches helping us with the business plan and helping us with the business and telling us how it works with the valley of death. And then we start making money, and in the end, there's the profit. We're wrong. At least in our case, and I can tell you in 99% of the other cases as well. Because actually, this is how it looks like. Profit is not always where you expect it, and basically, it's a big mess. So you think you're going forward, and it turns out that actually what you were doing wasn't the right thing to do, so you go backwards again. You turn around, you see what other options there are. Oh, and there are these coaches who think they know what's happening because they've been doing this for years, but they've never worked with this technology, right? Because it's new. And it turns out they were wrong. So this is actually what happens. And we're all trying to build models and to make policies to help all these disruptive innovations and get them to the market. The problem is there's just not one way to do that. But there are some things that we've found that could actually help. First of all, I think that when we're talking about innovative technologies and innovative products, we need to look at innovative business models. So it doesn't work to say we build a standard business plan, we write a standard business plan, that we've been doing that for years, and we say, okay, we start, what's your market? That's our first question normally. So what's your market? We say, well, basically everywhere where plants can grow and enough water is available, we can use this technology to produce electricity. Yeah, so what's your market? Well, basically every wetland in the world. That's not good enough. And you say, why not? Because it actually gives the scope of what we can do with this technology. So, okay, and then people say, so what's your first market? Where are you going to start? Who is your customer? We say, well, everyone who believes that this technology can change the world. That's not good enough. Put your customer in a group. I say, well, there is not a group. We found out, actually, people told us, you need to focus on a specific customer group. Who is your target customer? And we decided we were not going to do that. And it turns out that actually our current customers are very diverse, come from government, companies, individuals. So there's basically, we cover the whole range, and there's just this one characteristic that they have in common, which is they believe that this technology could change the world. So I strongly believe that we were right and all the coaches were wrong, which is probably why we're still right in the middle of the valley of death. Agreed. So then for the credibility, when it comes to government support for innovative technologies, we're always talking about subsidies. getting the technology to the market. Okay, we subsidize it for a while. We give you R&D subsidies, we give you grants. This is all really nice, but it's not always working. For example, in the Netherlands and in the rest of Europe as well, as a government, you can only subsidize 50% of a project. Okay, so how do I finance the other 50%? I started off with nothing. We didn't make any profit. So where do I get the other 50% of my project? There's just no way to do that. Unless the government gives a loan for the other 50%, which they're not allowed to based on rules from the EU, basically. So what would be much more efficient, and we've found that this actually works in quite a few cases, and lucky for us, in an increasing number of cases, the government at several levels, so municipalities, provinces, and the national governments, actually act as a launching customer. And that helps in two ways. Basically, they say, we believe that this could be potentially breakthrough technology. We believe in it and we give it a shot. And you've got profit. So basically, they buy your product, even though it's not finished yet. And this works quite well for us. And actually, we're getting somewhere. Now, when it comes to managing expectations, when we would have known, like the first day when we started, that media is going to tell what you can do in 10 years' time, we would have made our story a bit different. The problem was that as soon as we started up the company and we told the university we were doing that, like international media jumped on it and said, wow, this is cool. We can tell our readers, our viewers that this is possible. And we were managing expectations for the next 5 years, telling everyone, okay, what media told you, we can do that probably in 10 years' time. And people are very stubborn. So they call us and they say, but the newspaper said that it's possible. I said, well, I'm the one running the company, I tell you it's not possible. But the media said, the newspaper said, it was on television, so it must be true. Well, there's an interesting thing. You can use that to your advantage at a certain point, but it can be very annoying. So there's this challenge of actually using that to your advantage. And then for the final one, so about the knowledge dissemination, it's very challenging to train your people, especially in a high-tech company, I guess. So we found out that it takes about half a year for people to get used to our technology and start really working with it. So we need to think up front, so what are we going to do the next year and the year after that, and how many people are we going to need for that, because we need to train our people quite early on. And this brings in a lot of cost and a new challenge, obviously, but well, for now we've managed. We're with 5 people, we got our first products to the market, and it turns out that more and more people start believing that we could actually bring this breakthrough technology to the market, and that we might actually turn 15% of the wetlands worldwide into electricity plants to generate all the electricity we need. Thank you.